Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me on another Career Chats episode where we bring in some professionals in the industry to talk about what it is that they do, hoping that it'll shed more light for you guys to figure out what it is that you want to do in the sustainability industry. And so today we do have my colleague Kate, who's going to be sharing her experience as a sustainability marketing manager. And keep in mind, she currently changed her role, but this whole interview will be about marketing. And so hi, Kate. Can you please
Hi.
introduce yourself a bit and what you did for work?
Hi, yeah, I'm Kate. Tyanna and I went to school together, so I had the pleasure of being in grad school with her. But yeah, I worked for the past couple of years. I've worked for Sun and Swell Foods, which is a consumer packaged goods company based in Santa Barbara, California. And we sell organic, healthy foods in compostable packaging. It was a small startup, so I was doing a lot of things, but I was mainly doing sustainability and marketing. And so it's kind of cool because, yeah, for the sustainability space or for a sustainability minded company, I thought of marketing as like educating people about the environment and about maybe common misconceptions or just kind of like education versus like marketing a product because I didn't have any experience in marketing before I went into that job. So that's kind of my background, if that's helpful.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned that you didn't have so much experience before doing marketing. How is it that you ended up landing this role as a marketing professional?
Yeah. So what I found in grad school was that depending on where you wanted to go, which I studied corporate environmental science. So usually in the corporate world, like having sustainability and environmental science is great, but having another skill is really great to kind of get in somewhere. Or a lot of times, they have the sustainability person under the marketing department or under a different department. So I kind of noticed after my first year, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to kind of position myself a little bit differently to apply to these companies. And so actually, I just connected with the founder for some research I was doing in the plastics industry in my first year. And so we kind of became friends. And then during the summer, she was like, oh, a marketing position is open. She's like, I have no idea if you are interested in that or if you do that, but like, I feel like you're aligned with the company. So it was kind of a cool, and this company was very small. So I think I think it was okay that I didn't necessarily have traditional marketing experience, but what they needed was someone who could write blogs about environmental issues and kind of inform those like infographics about the science behind it. And so I had that experience. And I did have experience in like writing and communications. So yeah, that's kind of how I got in. And then how I moved more into marketing was kind of just the demand of the company. So it was like, okay, whatever kind of was the most pressing was what our attention focused on. And the marketing part did like take up a good portion. So I learned a lot on the job, which was cool. And like cool of the company to train me and take the time to do that. So I'm grateful for that.
Oh, no, that's really cool. And as you were talking, you highlighted a really important point of how sustainability usually sits under different buckets of departments, right? We're not seeing until recently where companies are wanting to invest in their own sustainability department, but that's what I experienced too. It's like there's not typically a sustainability team that's out there, but it usually does sit under certain buckets. So I think that was a good point that you brought up.
Yeah. And one more thing on that, I think it's cool when sustainability in general is integrated into all aspects of the company. So I think in a way it's kind of nice to not just have the sustainability department that's like siloed and then no one else knows about it. So I kind of think it can have its advantages, but also thinking about like how your skills can be used in like other little areas of a business if that's what you're wanting to go into.
And that's a good point too, because there's a lot of people from different areas outside of sustainability who are like, oh, I'm coming from tech and I want to do sustainability now. But then
Mhm.
it's like if you're someone who's doing software engineering, there's always companies who are trying to have a sustainability focus that need software engineers. And
Yep,
so I definitely do see it and sustainability as like a co-benefit of and co-skill set to something else that you're doing.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as someone who was doing marketing at the startup, what did your typical day to day look like?
Yeah, I feel like it was very different for me day to day, but I think that was probably the nature of the startup I was at. And I loved that because it was like, kept things interesting. But usually it would be like a check-in with other employees. We actually had a great like intern program, which was really nice. So I got to work with them. Generally, it would start like broad company check-in, and then that would kind of inform the day and maybe like we tried to do it like high level overview of brand marketing. And then from there, that kind of filters down into like, okay, well, what does that look like? Like, are we going to do, we need to make the blog posts fit with the social media, fit with the upcoming, like we did a lot of recipes with the food. So like it kind of all had to tie together. And then we tried to do an overarching theme of like the main themes of our company were like organic food, kind of like real food ingredients, kind of like not fake food. But every month we'd have a different theme. So it could be like regenerative agriculture was one month, or like plastic free July was a theme one month. And so it would kind of be like the content was really important because it would all like flow together. So my day was kind of based off like a big plan I had created before. And then it would be like, okay, what things do I need to get ready for like next month was generally what I was doing. But like, honestly, my day to day looked so different. Like some days it would be all like, doing like ads or like paid socials. And then some days I would be writing a lot and researching. We also had a lot of partners with like industrial composters. So I would like tour those and kind of keep communications with those. Oh yeah, I would do a lot of like affiliate marketing. So that's a lot of partnerships. So kind of working with other brands or maybe people who like we worked with a lot of I wouldn't call them influencers, but like people who have a blog or presence on the internet, and then they could kind of maybe have a community that would be interested in learning about, or maybe like a zero waste blogger, and then they would share about Sun and Swell, and they could get some commission if someone bought off their link. So definitely dove into so many different types of marketing. And it's funny because I would like talk to friends who would do marketing and they're like, oh yeah, I'm in affiliate marketing. And I was like, oh, I do that too. But I also do like, like paid social, I do PR, I do. So it was kind of like, I probably did each a tiny bit, but I tried all of them, which was fun.
Which one did you like the most out of the different types of marketing?
I kind of liked weirdly, I liked paid social, or I like paid ads because I really like the analytics behind things. So like you would try like different creatives or different like we would have like different sales and kind of just like see what worked and then getting to make informed decisions based off that. But I thought that was kind of cool. But then also like I loved blogs and a lot of our like brand ambassador programs, like to work with people. And so that was really fun because it was like, talking to like-minded people who had a zero waste blog and who were fired up about Sun and Swell. So that was really fun too.
Aw, I feel like you probably like the ad stuff more because we did come from a sciencey background. So it's like whenever there's data involved, you're like, yes.
I know.
How can you tell if things are working?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm so bad at like creatives. Like I'm actually so bad at like aesthetics and creatives. And so I'm like, how am I in marketing? And then I'm like, oh, I love data. That's why.
And there are
Just need
different
the data.
aspects to that too, right? It's like marketing isn't just being creative. Like there's this whole behind the scenes process that happens with it as well.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And when I like had the biggest misconception about what I thought marketing was before I did it, I was like, oh, it's like creating like I didn't even know what I thought. Like I thought you had to be really creative. And I think there's definitely like a part of marketing that's like really into that. And I probably should have worked with someone who was really good at that. And then we would have been a great team. But it's like there's this whole other side that's super data and like analytics based, which I had no idea before I started. So that was really cool.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned that you've done a lot of different aspects of marketing. Were there certain tools that you used that you thought were pretty essential that people who are new to the space, can maybe learn and pick up on their own?
Yeah. The first one that pops to my mind is Canva. And I think we had the paid version. So it was so nice. We could keep all our brand like logos in there and just like kind of it kept everything super consistent.
Mhm.
And so like that just like helped someone who's yeah. And we also had a graphic designer that was like outsourced. So when we needed to do bigger things or more professional things, we would definitely outsource it. But like for little things, that was just really nice. And
Mhm.
you can make beautiful presentations in there. So, and there's a free version. So that's kind of something to play around with. That could be a good start. We used like, it's hard because I guess it's like we use like Shopify and Klaviyo, but you would only, and those were essential for like email marketing. And then obviously the website. We did a lot of like website product descriptions and helping create the user experience and stuff. But that's more like those are really good skills to learn, but I don't know how you would I don't think you could like practice unless you're with a company who uses those. So
That's true.
and they're pretty user friendly and like easy to learn. So, but those are like two of the big things we used. And then for socials, I didn't do socials, but I know we used an app that's called I forget what it's called, but it basically like schedules all your like Pinterest or Instagram posts. Oh, it's called Tailwind. And it schedules and posts all your Instagram posts at like the right time that they have like an algorithm that thinks it's the best time to post. And so I know our socials team used that. And then we had like an affiliate platform called Share a Sale that was really nice. But I'm trying to think other than that, I think that like we used a lot of different programs, but it was more like internal coordination versus business suite for Facebook ads and stuff. So
So even though there are a lot of tools to learn, I think maybe if there's someone who doesn't have that experience quite yet, the most important thing would just to show that you can learn a specific software or tool really quickly. And I think people think that you have to have all these concrete technical skills for sustainability, in particular, but I really do feel that since the industry is still new, companies are looking for people who can do it, not that they have done it before,
mhm.
especially if they're more entry level.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, and I feel like with every company, it's like a different system, but essentially the same thing kind of, or a different app. So it's more like you're so right, your ability to learn that quickly or your openness to be able to pick something up versus like, oh, I have extensive skills in this one application. Like I don't think that's as necessary. Obviously, there's specific industries where that's necessary, but I think you're right, for sustainability, it's not.
So I know you mentioned that your company was a startup, and so would be totally interested to learn more about how that experience was for you. Because this is kind of like it was your first job out of college, right? And so coming in to this very busy startup company, how was that? How would you describe it?
I feel like it was such a good experience right out of grad school because like well I didn't know any different so I think but you're like we were grinding and we were you're not given much structure so I think it's like
Mhm.
I don't know even now at my new job I'm like oh there's like a process in place for this that's really nice like for everything I had to like start the process for it or like the organization behind it and looking back I'm super grateful because I'm like whoa that made me so resourceful like they gave me a task and I just got it done like I figured it out and I made it happen because going into it, I was definitely like, I had my academic down, but I didn't necessarily have my job skills down. So I think it was great for me in that sense. Specifically with sustainability, I think there is a bit maybe like it was a sustainability minded company. So anything like basically the thought was like, okay, even though I'm doing marketing, I'm in a way doing sustainability because I work for a sustainability minded company. Like it'd kind of be like the argument of like doing marketing at Patagonia. Like I'm maybe not working directly on like the sustainability science, but I'm still in the space. But what I figured out is I wanted to be doing the science that I had just learned in grad school. And
Mhm.
so I think like that was really important for me to figure out because I didn't know that, And so I think working for the company, I figured out like, oh wait, yeah, actually, even though like we're doing high level sustainability, if my day-to-day is marketing, like, I don't know if that's going to make me happy. But I still look back and I'm like, wait, I'm so glad I learned marketing. I learned all these skills. And I think it was perfect for what that last year, like what I needed in that last year. But I definitely figured out like, oh no, I want to be every day, like doing the science and the math and and like more from a consulting standpoint. So, that was just, I think the biggest takeaway from that is probably just like, you can never mess up by trying something because it'll teach you something about yourself. So I think that was like my biggest takeaway. Overall great experience, but I figured out what I like didn't necessarily want to do, which I think is a win.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy that you found something that you want to do and something that more aligns with and fits with what you want in the future. And I totally get that because before I was doing like graphic design and like communications for sustainability companies or maybe for non-sustainability
Mhm.
companies. But it was kind of frustrating because even though I got to do the creative work and I like doing that, I felt like I wasn't learning enough about sustainability for myself. And then I kind of just felt like I was floating away from it and what my knowledge set me up for. So I totally understand where you're coming from. But I think it's also really important to have really good marketers out there because I do feel like there is a disconnect with trying to communicate and market correctly. I know we
Mhm.
talked about greenwashing in the past, but
Yeah.
would love to understand how it is that your startup company took that to heart. Like, did you guys follow any practices out there, or what's your opinions on it since you were in the marketing space for a bit?
Yeah. So I think this subject is like so important. And I don't know, what freaks me out is like sometimes I, even as like me and you are probably pretty educated compared to most of the population on like environmental things, having a master's in it. And sometimes I like marketing is so powerful, like how you say something or how you convey things. And so I always felt like I was so nervous to state anything because I think I'm just so aware of it being on like in grad school, we like did case studies on companies that were like greenwashing. And so I think I'm just so aware of it. Whereas like a lot of companies maybe just think, oh, we're doing something like we're doing something better. So we should talk about it. And like,
Mhm.
although that's like true, and I don't want to like hate on the companies that are trying because, at least they are trying to change the system, but it is it is becoming an issue. And I think it's also tricky when like marketers maybe have a background in this is like environmental science. And then it's really confusing and like it's a convoluted process. Like, it's like it took us 2 years to like, and I studied in undergrad too. And it's still just like such a complex issue. Whereas like something big I learned too is like, it's not always just like straightforward. Like sometimes plastic is better than paper. Sometimes paper is better than plastic. Like it's kind of situational. So
Mm.
I I don't know. So sometimes I'm like the green trendy thing is like not even the best solution. So I think it's just kind of taking a candid approach and being the most transparent you can and kind of owning up to like we aren't perfect. Like something the company always did was like we are on a journey with you guys. Like we're not perfect. We by no means are we like doing everything right, but we're like on this journey to push for a food system that provides clean food and that is trying to use like packaging that's better than plastic. Like we're trying to change the system.
Mhm.
Um, but I think making like big claims is never probably a good idea. And so I don't know. I think that works like as a consumer, I would say like do your own research and definitely like think of things systematically, like from a big picture. But then for brands and marketers, like it's tricky. I think having like strict protocols in place that kind of filter through the entire company is really important. Having like a top-down understanding, like I was grateful that our founders were totally bought in. So it didn't feel like I was ever like, oh, we need to do this like environmental thing, and they were arguing against it. But at the same time, they didn't have a environmental background; they had a business background. So it was also tricky sometimes being like, oh no, that's greenwashing. I had to be like, oh, that's not true. Like just because you saw it on LinkedIn, like that's false or something. And so I think it's just so easy to get caught up in it.
Yeah. Where would you say people who are in marketing, let's say they have a marketing background and they want to start working for a company who is sustainably minded, where can they find some resources that maybe you've looked at so they know if they're greenwashing or not?
I feel like I don't know if I have like a resource to look for like the companies, but
Mhm.
if you had a company that you were interested in, what I would say is look if they've done like a sustainability report and then like read the report and see what they've actually set out to do. Um, because like, I don't know, sometimes they'll have a report, but then it's kind of like, wait, what are you actually saying? But then I feel like that's a good place to start. That shows initiative. If a company is like a B Corp, like you could look on, I think it's called B Corp like directory, and you can look for companies that are B corporations, which means they've gone through like an extensive process to become a certified B corporation, like which has it's basically like people, planet, like the triple bottom line. And so like that's another good place to start. That's a lot of like money and time. So you know companies put effort towards that.
In the US, at least, there's something called the Federal Trade Commission, and they do have some guidelines and documents on there that talk about greenwashing and what you should do and can't do. But something with that is that I think the last publication for that was in 2012. And so I
Mm.
did hear news that they are updating it a bit starting now, but when that's going to come out, I don't know. And if and when it does come out, I really hope that it is really stringent and can help protect the consumer a lot more because I feel like brands have a huge responsibility. And like for people who are in marketing overall, they have a huge responsibility to not only make the brand look good with what they're doing, but also wanting to provide the best transparency to their consumers and who's going to buy and support them, you know? So I
Yeah.
think maybe if you're in the US market, at least that's somewhere that people can look and they want to learn more about. I think last question, um, what final advice would you give someone who wants to work as a sustainability marketing manager?
Mm, I think I would say like think about maybe if think about the underlying issue you're interested in. So I would have that like inform the company you want to work for. Because I think like if you want to be effective in the food space, you know, like that's a whole section of companies. If you want to be in the fashion and apparel space, like the skills are transferable, but I really think there's from the sustainability aspect, like I don't know if I could go work in the apparel industry. You know, like it's such a like the food space, I know so much in it. And so I think it's kind of like figuring out maybe a sector you're passionate about or maybe you have like previous skills in and like diving into that, you can be really effective in your work. And maybe kind of that's kind of how you could have an in too. So kind of like think of it through like a sector space maybe. And there's like so many more I think opportunities than you think. Like if you think about like the pharmaceutical industry or the food industry or the like clothing, like there's every space needs sustainability and marketing, you know? So it's like those you have a lot of opportunities. But yeah, probably just maybe looking internally and figuring out what space you feel passionately about or where you could be most effective would be a good first step.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. But yeah, thank you so much, Kate, for joining us today and hope that you guys learned something.
Of course. Thank you. Bye.